So I'm now recording.
Everybody pay attention.
Okay, no crosstalks, we need attention.
Okay, so, is it, okay. Hello everybody, I'm going to be performing It's a Wonderful Life, which is copyrighted. So I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this of my own free will and do not expect to be paid. But if you want to donate to the Desert Bus, which I'm not officially affiliated with, you go right ahead. There you go. It's a Wonderful Life. We begin with a shot of the Liberty Bell rigging out wings. Liberty Films presents cut to a cover of a book depicting a horse-drawn sleigh. We flip the page. Da 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 da. It's a Wonderful. Bright Capra's It's a Wonderful Life, an RKO radio release. Flip. Starring James Stewart, Flip, and Donna Reed, with Lionel Barrymore, Thomas Mitchell, Henry Travers, Flip, and Beulah Bondi, Frank Phelan, Ward Bond, never heard of him, What's Her Face, Nobody Cares, and Virginia Patton, Flip, 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 produced and directed by Frank Capra, Flip, cut to a sign covered in snow that says you are now in Bedford Falls. We hear the prayers of the townspeople. I owe everything to George Bailey. Help him, dear Father. Joseph, Jesus, Mary, help my friend Mr. Bailey. George is a good guy. Give him a break, God. And then with a massive leap of budget, as we cut to outer space, planets and stars whip by, and we listen to two galaxies having a conversation together. Hello, Joseph. Trouble? Looks like we'll have to send somebody down. A lot of people asking for help for a man named George Bailey. George Bailey. Yes, tonight's his crucial night, isn't it? You're right. We'll have to send someone down. Joseph, send for Clarence. Do. And they go, scroll down. You sent for me, sir? Yes, Clarence. A man down on Earth needs your help. Splendid. Is he sick? No, worse. He's discouraged. At exactly 10:45 p.m. Earth time, the invasion will begin. I mean, the man will be thinking seriously of throwing away God's greatest gift. Oh, dear. Oh, dear, his life, and I've only an hour to dress. What are they wearing now? Poor George. Sit down. Sit down? What are we... If you're going to help a man, you want to know something about him, don't you? Well, naturally, of course, but Well, keep your eyes open. You see the town? Where? I don't see a thing. Oh, I forgot. You haven't got your wings yet. Now, look, I'll help you out. Concentrate. Begin to see something? Why, yes, this is amazing. If you ever get your wings, you'll be able to do this all by yourself. Oh, wonderful. We see George's brother, Harry, slide down the hill into the ice and falls through. George saved his brother's life that day, but he caught a bad cold which infected his left ear, cost him his hearing in that ear. It was weeks before we were able to go back to his after-school job at the old man Gower's drugstore. Hee-haw, wish I had $1 million. Hot dog! It's me, Mr. Gower, George Bailey. And Gower peeks out of the back room, very drunk. You're late. Yes, sir. Little Mary Hatch is sitting there waiting for George at the counter. Made up your mind yet? I'll take chocolate. With coconuts? I don't like coconuts. You don't like coconuts? Say, brainless, don't you know where coconuts come from? Look at here. Look, from Tahiti, Fiji Islands, and the Coral Sea. A new magazine. I never saw it before. Of course you never. Only us explorers can get it. I've been nominated for the membership in the National Geographic Society. He leans down to finish scooping up the ice cream. Is this the year you can't hear on? George Bailey, I love you till the day I die. George pops back up. I'm going out exploring someday, you watch. I'm going to have a couple of harems and maybe 3 or 4 wives. Wait and see. George finds an open telegram on the counter. Insert the telegram. It reads, we regret to inform you that your son Robert died very suddenly this morning of influenza. Stop. George goes into the back room. Mr. Gower, do you want something? Anything? No. Anything I can do back here? No. Take these capsules over to Mrs. Blaine's. She's waiting for them. George picks up the capsules, but notices that the bottle Mr. Gower filled the capsules with is labeled poison. George walks out into the back room not knowing what to do, but sees a cigarette ad in the window. Ask Dad, he knows, sweet Caporal. Only in the 1940s could you get a kid getting advice from a cigarette ad. George runs down the street to the Bailey Building alone, and we see his father, and we see Lionel Barrymore for the first time, back when the Barrymores could act. Have you put any real pressure on these people of yours to pay those mortgages? Times are bad, Mr. Potter. A lot of these people are going out of work. Well, then foreclose. I can't do that. These families have children. They're not my children. But there's somebody's children, Mr. Potter. Are you running a business or a charity ward? Not with my money. Mr. Potter, what makes you such a hard-skulled character? You have no family, no children. You can't begin to spend all the money you've got. So I suppose I should give it all to the miserable failures like you and that idiot brother of yours to spend for me. He's not a failure. You can't say that about my father. And George's father escorts him out of the office. Don't let him say that about you, Pop. All right, son, all right, thanks. I'll talk to you tonight. So George goes back to the drugstore, but Mr. Gower gets a phone call telling that the pills haven't arrived yet, and he takes it out on George, slapping him upside the head and on his sore ear. George starts crying and tells Mr. Gower about the poison he put in the pills. Mr. Gower realizes what he's done, and he weeps, and he hugs George. Flash forward 10 years to George in a luggage shop. Oh, an overnight bag, genuine English cowhide, combination lock, fitted up with brushes and... Oh, no, look, Joe. Now, look, I want a big one. big, see? I don't want one for one night. I want one for 1,001 nights with plenty of room here for labels from Italy and Baghdad and Samarkand. Great big, see? I see a flying carpet. I don't suppose you'd like this old second-hand job, would you? No, you're talking. Gee whiz, I could use this as a raft in case the boat sunk. How much does this cost? No charge. That's my trick here, Joe. It sounded like you said no charge. That's right. Well, what's my name doing on it? A little present from old man Gower came down and picked it out himself. He did? Oh, what do you know about that? I'm my old boss. So George goes out, drops by Mr. Gower's drugstore, packed with kids, and thanks him for his suitcase. I wish I had $1 million. Hot dog! And he goes out, George shakes Gower's hand and exits. He heads back up Main Street with his brand new suitcase and gets shouted at from the second floor window of the building and loan. That's here, Captain Hook. Got your sea legs yet? Parlez-vous français, Mr. A? Send us some picture postcards, will you, George? Hey, George, don't take any plug nickels. Hey, George, your suitcase is leaking. We also see Ernie, the cab driver, and Bert the cop. Hi, Ernie. Hi, Bert. Hey, look, Bert, it's George Bailey. Rubber ducky, you're the one. And we cut to the Bailey household, and we see George's younger brother Harry is getting ready for the school prom. No gin tonight, son. Oh, Pop, just a little. No, son, not one drop. Aw. And we, boys and girls, the music. Why do they need gin? Did I act like that when I graduated from high school? Pretty much. You know, George, I wish we could send Harry to college with you. Your mother and I talked it over half the night. Oh, we have that all figured out. You see, Harry will take my job at building and loan, work there 4 years, and then he'll go. And he's pretty young for that job. Oh, no younger than I was. Well, maybe you were born older, George. How's that? I said you were born older. I suppose you've decided what you're going to do once you get out of college? Oh, well, you know, all that stuff I've talked about, build things, design new buildings, plan modern cities, all that stuff I've been talking about. Of course, it's just a hope, but you wouldn't consider coming back to the building and loan, would you? Oh, now, Pop, I couldn't. I couldn't face being cooped up in the rest of my life in a shabby little office. Oh, I'm sorry, Pop. I didn't mean that. But it's this business of nickels and dimes and spending all your life trying to figure out how to save 3 cents on a length of pipe. I'd go crazy. I want to do something big and something important. But, Pop, you want a shock? I think you're a great guy. What? Did you hear that, Annie? I heard it's about time one of you lunkheads fed it. And George gets dressed and heads to the Harry's party where he meets his old friend Sam Wainwright. Hee-haw! Oh, Sam Wainwright, how are you? When did you get here? Oh, this afternoon. I thought I'd give the kids a treat. Old college graduate now, huh? Yeah, old Joe College Wainwright, they call me. And Marty shows up. George, Marty, well, it's old home week. Do me a favor, will you, George? What's that? Well, you remember my kid's sister, Mary? Oh, yeah. Well, dance with her, will you? Oh, me? Oh, I feel funny enough already with all these kids. Oh, come on, be a sport. Just dance with her one time and you'll give her the thrill of her life. Hey, sis. Oh, don't be long, Marty. I don't want to be a wet nurse for... And that's when George sees Mary Hatch all grown up for the first time. She's listening to some idiot talk about a track meet. And George and Mary lock eyes and George comes over and cuts in. And the idiot says, hey, this is my dance. Oh, why don't you stop annoying people? Well, I'm sorry. Hey! And they walk off. And Harry jumps on stage. Oh, yes, the big Charleston contest. The prize, a genuine loving cup. Those not tapped by the judges will remain on the floor. Let's go. And everybody starts to dance. And Mary's old date is standing in the corner when some sly punk comes up to him. What's the matter, Othello? Jealous? Did you know there's a swimming pool under this floor? And did you know that the button behind you causes this floor to open up? And did you further know that George Bailey is dancing right over that crack? And I've got the key? Why are you talking like that? I don't know. So the floor starts to open up, but George and Mary are completely oblivious. They're cheering us. We must be good. They fall in, and everybody jumps in because, hey, it's a party. We cut to George and Mary walking down the street singing Buffalo Gals in improvised harmony. She's wearing a robe, and he's holding up his pants in some old football uniform. Okay, then I'll throw a rock at the old Granville house. Oh, no, George, don't. It's full of romance, that old place. I'd like to live in it. And that place? Uh-huh. I wouldn't live in it if I was a ghost. Now, watch. It's right on the second floor, see? And he throws the rock, and he breaks the window. Crash. What you wish for, George? Not just one wish, a whole hatful. Mary, I know what I'm going to do tomorrow and the next day and next year and the year after that. I'm shaking the dust off this crummy little town off my feet and I'm going to see the world. Italy, Greece, the Parthenon, the Colosseum. Then I'm coming back here and go to college and see what they know. And then I'm going to build things. I'm going to build airfields. I'm going to build bridges a mile long. I'm going to skyscrapers 100 stories high. What, you're going to throw a rock? Crash. That's pretty good. What you wish for, Mary? What is it you want, Mary? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down. That's a pretty good idea. I'll give you the moon, Mary. I'll take it. Then what? Well, then you could swallow it, and it all dissolves, see, and moonbeams would shoot out of your fingers and your toes and the ends of your hair, and am I talking too much? Yes! And there's this creepy Irishman that starts wailing at him from his front porch. Why did you kid her instead of talking to the dead? How's that? I said, why did you kid her instead of talking to the dead? You want me to kiss her, huh? Oh, you did wait through it. Hey, hold on. Yeah, hey, mister, you come back here. I'll show you some kissing. I'll put hair back on your head. What are you? And Mary runs off, but George is standing on the belt of her bathrobe. And as she goes, her robe comes off, and she hides in the hydrangea bushes. George is about to touch the robe when it hits him. Wait a minute. What am I doing? This is a very interesting situation. George Bailey, give me my robe. I read about things like this, but I never... shame on you. I'm going to tell your mother on you. Oh, my mother's way up the corner there. As if, well, I'll call the police. They're way downtown. They'll be on my side, too. As if, I'm going to scream. Maybe I could sell tickets. No. And just then a car pulls up. It's Uncle Billy. George, come on, quick. Your father's had a stroke. George throws Mary the robe, jumps in the car, and they drive off. We cut to the boardroom. I want the board to know that George gave up his trip to Europe to help straighten things out here these past few months. Good luck to you at school, George. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to get to my real purpose. I claim this institution is not necessary to this town. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to dissolve this institution and turn the assets and liabilities over to the receiver. Just a minute, just a minute. Now, hold on, Mr. Potter. No, just a minute. Now, you're right when you say my father was no businessman. I know that. Why he ever started this cheap penny-ante building and loan, I'll never know. But neither you nor anybody else can say anything about his character, because his whole life was... Why, the 25 years since he and Uncle Billy started this thing, he never once thought of himself. Isn't that right, Uncle Billy? He didn't save enough money to send Harry to school, let alone me, but he did help a few people get out of your slums, Mr. Potter, and what's wrong with that? Why, here, you're all businessmen here. Doesn't it make them better citizens? Doesn't it make them better customers? You said that they... What did you say just a minute ago? They had to wait and save their money before they even thought of a decent home? Wait for what? Until their children grow up and leave them? Until they're so old and broken down that do you know how long it takes a working man to save $5,000? Just remember this, Mr. Potter, that this rabble you're talking about, that they do most of the working and paying and living and dying in this community. Well, is it too much to is it too much to have them work and pay and live and die in a couple of decent rooms and a bath? Anyway, my father didn't think so. People were human beings to them. But to you, a warped, frustrated old man, they're cattle. Well, in my book, he died a much richer man than you'll ever be. I'm not interested in your book. I'm talking about the building and loan. I know very well what you're talking about. You're talking about something you can't get your figures on, and it's galling you. That's what you're talking about. I know. Well, I've said too much. You're the board here. You do what you need to do with this thing. There's just one more thing, though. This town needs this measly one-horse institution if only to have some place where people can come without crawling to Potter. Now, come on, Uncle Billy. George storms out. Sentimental hogwash. I want my wish. Hurrumph. And George goes to leave the office when Dr. Campbell comes out in the boardroom. George, they voted Potter down. They want to keep it going, but they've got one condition. Only one condition. What's that? That's the best part of it. They've appointed George here as executive secretary to take his father's place. Oh, no, but Uncle Billy, you can keep him on. That's all right. As secretary, you can hire anybody you like. Now, Dr. Campbell, now, let's get this thing straight. I'm leaving right now. I'm going to school. This is my last chance. Uncle Billy here, he's your man. But George, they'll vote with Potter otherwise. Cut back to a galaxy far, far away. I know, he didn't go. That's right. Not only that, but he gave his school money to his brother Harry and sent him to college. Harry became a football star, made second team All-American. Yeah, but what happened to George? George got 4 years older, waiting for Harry to come back and take over the building and loan. We see Uncle Billy and George sitting on a traffic platform. There she rolls. You know what the three most exciting sounds in the world are? Breakfast is served, lunch is served, dinner. No. Anchor chains, plane motors, and train whistles. Peanut. George's brother Harry jumps off the train. George, Uncle Billy, I want you to meet Ruth. Ruth Dakin Bailey, if you don't mind. Oh, that's right. Well, I wired you I had a surprise. Here she is. Meet the wife. And there's congratulations all around from George and Uncle Billy. What's a pretty girl like you marrying this two-headed brother of mine? Well, I'll tell you, it's purely mercenary. My father offered him a job, and Ruth wanders off, and Uncle Billy and Harry approaches George. George, about the job, Ruth spoke out of turn. I never said I'd take it. You've been holding the bag here for 4 years, and, well, I won't let you down, George. George goes over to Ruth while Harry gets the bag. George, that's all Harry ever talks about. Hey, Ruth, And he does 4 staggers, 4 of them in a row. Ruth, verbatim from the movie. What about this job? Oh, well, my father owns a glass factory in Buffalo. He wants to get Harry started in the research business. Well, was it a good job? Oh, yes, very. Not much money, but good future, you know. Harry's a genius at research. My father just fell in love with him, and you too, huh? Yeah. Cut to Harry's welcome home party at the Bailey house. George points at drunken Uncle Billy down the street on his way home. My old Irish rose crash. I'm all right. I'm all right. The sweetest flower that grows. And George starts wandering aimlessly around town, his head full of problems, and he ends up outside Mary's house. Mary spots him loitering around and calls him inside. Apparently, George's mother called Mary in advance that he might be stopping by, so she's got on a nice dress, puts on Buffalo Gals on the gramophone, and has a picture of George lassoing the moon in an easel in the corner. All this in reference to a single date they had 4 years ago. You might think this is romantic, but I think it's the creepiest thing I've ever heard of in my life. This is where Alfred Hitchcock got most of his ideas. Especially with the old lady upstairs. Who's down there with you? It's George Bailey, Mother. George Bailey? What's he want? I don't know. What do you want? Me? Oh, not a thing. I just came in and get warm. He's making violent love to me, Mother. You tell him to go right back home. And don't you leave the house either. Sam Wainwright promised to call you from New York tonight. George gets up and goes to leave. Just when Sam calls, and he wants to talk to them both over the receiver about getting it on the ground floor of some plastics business. Anyway, standing next to each other for 30 seconds somehow makes them realize they love each other. So George drops the phone and grabs her by the shoulders and says, now you listen to me. I don't want any plastics, I don't want any ground floors, and I don't want to get married, ever, to anyone. You understand that? I want to do what I want to do. And you're... Well, we see George and Mary getting married in the next scene. They pile into Ernie's cab. George fans out a wad of cash. You know what we're going to do? We're going to shoot the works. A whole week in New York, a whole week in Bermuda, the highest hotels, the oldest champagne, the richest caviar, the hottest music, and the prettiest wife. Ernie stops the cab. Don't look now, but there's something funny going on there at the bank, George. I've never really seen one, but that's got all the earmarks of being a run. George and Mary rush into the bank, and just about everyone in Bedford Falls is crowded around the door. George finds Uncle Billy. All right, now what happened? How did it start? How does a thing like this ever start? All I know is the bank called our loan. When? About an hour ago. I had to hand over all our cash. All of it, every cent of it, and it still was less than we owe them. Holy mackerel! And so Potter phones and offers to buy them out. George, do you need any police? Just tell them to bring their shares over here, and I will pay them 50 cents on the dollar. Oh, you never miss a trick, do you, Potter? Well, you're not going to miss this one. And he hangs up. George goes out to face the mob, and they're all demanding their money. I'll take mine now. No, but you're thinking of this place all wrong, as if I have the money back in the safe. The money's not here. Well, your money's in Joe's house, and that's right next to yours, and the Kennedy's house, and Mrs. Macklin's house, and 100 others. Why, you're lending the money to build, and then they're going to pay it back to you the best they can. Now, what are you going to do? Foreclose on them? And somebody bursts in. Tom, did you get your money? No. Well, I did. Old man Potter will pay 50 cents on the dollar for every share you got. Crowd add that. 50 cents on the dollar. Peas and carrots, rhubarb. Yes, cash. The crowd goes to leave, but George blocks the door. Now wait, now listen. Now listen to me. I beg you not to do this thing. If Potter gets a hold of this building and loan, there'll never be another decent house built in this town. He's already in charge of the bank. He's got the bus line. He's got the department stores, and now he's after us. But my husband hasn't worked in a year. I need money. How am I going to live until the bank opens? I got doctor bills to pay. I need cash. I can't feed my kids on faith. Mary holds up a wad of honeymoon cash and says, how much do you need? George jumps over the counter and takes the money from Mary. Hey, I got $2,000. Here's $2,000. This will tie us over till the bank reopens. All right, Tom, how much do you need? $242. No, Tom, just enough to tide you over till the bank reopens. I'll take $242. Oh, there you are. That'll close my account. No, your account's still here. This is a loan. Okay, all right. Ed, well, I got $300 here, George. All right, now, I know. What'll it take till the bank reopens? What do you need? Well, I suppose $20, $20. Now you're talking. Thanks, Ed. That's fine. All right. Now, Mrs. Thompson, how much do you want? But it's your own money, George. Never mind about that. How much do you want now? I can get along with 20, all right. $20, fine. And I'll sign a paper. You don't have to sign anything. I know you'll pay it back when you can. That's okay. All right. Mrs. Davis, could I have $17.50? That's when I usually start to cry. 7, and he kisses her. Bless her heart. Of course, you got 50 cents? And that's when I usually start the crowd. They close the day, still misses with $2 left. Sound familiar? Raising money. A toast to Papa Dollar and Mama Dollar. And if you want to keep this old building alone in business, you better have a family real quick. George gets a call from Mary, who gets him to come down to the old Granville place they threw rocks at 4 years ago. Bert the cop and Ernie the cab driver have covered the place with posters from a travel agency. George walks in and there's luau music and 2 chickens roasting on a spit. Bert and Ernie stand outside in the rain and sing "I Love You Truly" a cappella in the rain when they leave George and Mary to their honeymoon, because all sex is implied in these old movies. We cut to George helping Martini move out of his old shack. "Martini, you rented a new house?" "Rent?" "You hear what you say, Mr. Bailey?" "What's that?" "I own the house. Me, Giuseppe Martini. I own the house. No more we living like a pigs in this potter's field. Hurry, Maria." And all Martini's kids, a dog and a goat, pile into George's old car, and we cut to Martini moving into Bailey Park, and Sam Wainwright shows up in his new expensive car and his trophy wife. And he says, "Still got the nose to the old grindstone, eh? Jane and I offered to let George in on the ground floor in plastics, and he turned me down cold." "Oh, now, don't rub it in." "I'm not rubbing it in." "Well, I guess we better run along." Hee-haw! Sam drives off in his Rolls Royce, and George kicks the door of his old jalopy. Cut to George sitting in Potter's office. "George, I'm an old man. Most people hate me, but I don't like them either, so that makes it all even. You know just as well as I do that I run practically everything in this town but the Bailey building alone. Now, I have stated my side very frankly. Now, let's look at your side. Young man, 27, 28, married, making, say, 40 a week, 45. Out of which, after supporting your mother and paying your bills, you're able to keep, say, 10, if you skimp. A child or two comes along, and you won't ever be able to save 10. Oh, what's your point, Mr. Potter?" My point is I want to hire you." "Hire me?" "Yes. I want you to manage my affairs, run my properties. George, I'll start you out at $20,000 a year, which is about $6.5 million in 1940s money. So George stands at $20,000 a year. Desert Bus made that last year in 4 days. You wouldn't mind living in the nicest house in town, buying your wife a lot of fine clothes, a couple of business trips to New York a year, maybe once in a while Europe? You wouldn't mind that, would you, George?" "Would I?" They shake hands, but then George sees the trap. The answer's no, doggone it. You sit around here and you spin your little webs and you think the whole world revolves around you and your money. Well, it doesn't, Mr. Potter. In the whole vast configuration of things, I'd say you're nothing but a scurvy little spider. George comes home and finds out Mary is pregnant. You mean, Mary, you're on the nest?" George lassos Sturk. Because people had an odd way of phrasing things like that back then. Then there's a montage describing how they had 3 kids and Mary fixed up the old Granville house, and then we learn what absolutely every character in the movie did during the war. Ma Bailey and Mrs. Hatch joined the Red Cross and sewed. Mary had 2 more babies and still found time to rub the USO. Sam Wainwright made a fortune in plastic hoods for planes. Potter became head of the draft board. Gower and Uncle Billy sold war bonds. Bert the cop was wounded in North Africa, got the Silver Star. Ernie the taxi driver parachuted into France. Marty helped capture Remagen Bridge. Not saying that right. But Harry Bailey topped them all. A naval flyer, he shot down 15 planes, 2 of them as they were about to crash into a transport full of soldiers. Joseph, now show them what happened today. Yes, sir. This morning, day before Christmas, about 10 a.m., Bedford Falls time. George is walking around Main Street, proud as punch, passing out newspapers. "Hey, Ernie, look at that. Gonna snow again." "What do you mean it's gonna snow? Look at the headline. President decorates Harry Bailey." And they're putting a banner over the courthouse that says, "Welcome home, Harry Bailey." George arrives at the building and loan, and the bank examiner is waiting for him. "Mr. Carter, Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas." "Now, we're all excited around here. My brother just got the Congressional Medal of Honor. The president just decorated him." "Well, I guess they do things like that." "Well, I trust you had a good year." "Good year." "Ah, well, between you and me, Mr. Carter, we're broke." Cut to Uncle Billy in the bank filling out a deposit slip for $8,000. Mr. Potter is wheeled in, reading the newspaper. Uncle Billy goes over and grabs it. "Oh, well, Harry Bailey wins Congressional Medal. That couldn't be one of the Bailey boys. You just can't keep those Baileys down now, can you, Mr. Potter?" Uncle Billy pulls up the newspaper and throws it into Potter's lap as he gets wheeled out. He goes to make the deposit, but he can't find the money, because when he folded up the newspaper and gave it to Mr. Potter, he left the deposit inside. Uncle Billy scrambles through his pockets, checks the trash can, scours the snow-covered sidewalk. Nothing. He rushes back to the building and loan. "What's going on? The bank examiner's here." "And he's here?" "Well, yeah, he wants an accounts payable." "What's the matter with you?" Uncle Billy tells George that he can't find the money, and they look through the vault and all the drawers. Nothing. Now look, did you buy anything? Nothing, not even a stick of gum. George and Uncle Billy search for it in the street, and all the way back to Uncle Billy's house, they still can't find it. They're both hysterical and exhausted. Listen to me, think. I can't think anymore, George. I can't think anymore. It hurts. Where's that money, you silly, stupid old fool? Where's that money? You realize what this means? It means bankruptcy and scandal and prison. That's what it means. One of us is going to jail. Well, it's not going to be me. George storms out and heads home, and he's in a foul mood. His daughter, Janie, is thumping away on the piano. Must she keep playing that? I have to practice for the party tonight, Daddy. Daddy, the Browns next door have a new car. You should see it. Well, what's the matter with our car? Isn't it good enough for you? His daughter, Zuzu, is sick in bed with a cold. Zuzu? What's the matter with Zuzu? Oh, she's got a cold. She's in bed, caught it coming home from school. They gave her a flower for a prize. She didn't want to crush it, so she didn't button up her coat. George goes upstairs and talks to her. Some petals fall off her flower she brought from school. Look, Daddy, paste it. Yeah, all right, I'll paste those together. So George turns around and pretends to tinker with the flower, but just puts the petals in his pocket. There I go to his nose, and I'll give the flower a drink. Now, will you do something for me? What? We're trying to get some sleep. I'm not sleepy. I want you to look at my flower. I know. You just go to sleep, and then you can dream about it, and it'll be a whole garden. It will. George comes downstairs, and Mary's on the phone with Mrs. Wells, Zuzu's teacher. Hello? Hello, Mrs. Wells. This is George Bailey. I'm Zuzu's father. Say, what kind of teacher are you anyway? What do you mean sending her home like that, half naked? Do you realize she'll probably end up with pneumonia on account of you? Is this the sort of thing we pay taxes for? To have teachers like teachers like you, stupid, silly, careless people who send our kids home without any clothes on? You know, maybe my kids aren't the best dressed kids. Maybe they don't have any decent clothes. And Mary takes the receiver from George, but Mrs. Welch has already hung up. Dad, how do you spell hallelujah? How should I know? What do you think I am, a dictionary? Tommy, stop that. Stop it. Janie, haven't you learned that silly tune yet? You've played it over and over again. Now stop it. Stop it. And he goes over to his small workshop with a drawing board and models of bridges and buildings and things, and he kicks them over. Afterwards, there's a terrible moment when his family stares at him, hurt and afraid. George makes a weary apology and goes out into the snow. We cut to George in Potter's office. I'm in trouble, Mr. Potter. I need help. There's some sort of accident. My company's short in their accounts. The bank examiner's up here today. I've got to raise $8,000 immediately. Look at you. You used to be so cocky. You were going to go out and conquer the world. You once called me a warped, frustrated old man. What are you but a warped, frustrated young man? A miserable little clerk crawling in here on your hands and knees and begging for help. No securities, no stocks, no bonds, nothing but a miserable $500 equity and life insurance policy. You're worth more dead than alive. Why don't you go to the riffraff you love so much and ask them to let you have $8,000? You know why? Because they'd run you out of town on a rail. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you, George. Since the state examiner is still here, as a stockholder of the building and loan, I'm going to swear out a warrant on your arrest. Misappropriation of funds, manipulation, malfeasance. George turns and starts out of the office, and Potter picks up the telephone and dials. All right, George, go ahead. You can't hide in a little town like this. George goes to Martini's bar and finds himself praying for help over his drink. God. Dear Father in heaven, I'm not a praying man, but if you're up there and you can hear me, show me the way. I'm at the end of my rope, and show me the way, oh God. Why you drink so much, my friend? Please go home, Mr. Bailey. This is Christmas Eve. The man at the end of the bar perks up. Bailey? Which Bailey? This is Mr. George Bailey. And the guy at the end of the bar punches George in the face and knocks him to the floor. The next time you talk to my wife like that, you'll get even worse. She cried for an hour, and it isn't enough that she slaves teaching your stupid kids how to read and write. And you have to bawl her out. Martini tosses Mr. Welch out. That's what you get for praying. George goes out of the bar and gets in his car and drives away. He crashes into a tree, and some schmuck with an umbrella comes out. Now look what you did. My great-grandfather planted this tree, and George wanders off in the snowstorm. It's snowing hard now. He finally comes to the bridge, and he's leaning over the railing, staring into the rough water like a crazy man. Just as he gets ready to jump, Clarence shows up and jumps in before he does. So George jumps in to save him and drags him out of the water. They both dry off in the... They both dry off in the toll house. Hey, what's with you? What did you say just a minute ago? You want to save me? That's what I was sent for. I'm your guardian angel. I wouldn't be a bit surprised. Stranger things have happened. Last week I was talking to a giant invisible rabbit named Harv. Well, you look about the kind of angel I'd get. What was sort of a fallen angel, aren't you? Well, what happened to your wings?
I haven't won my wings yet. That's why I'm an angel second class.
I don't know whether I like it very much being seen around with an angel without wings.
Oh, I've got to earn them. You'll help me, won't you?
Sure. How?
By letting me help you. Yeah, so you think killing yourself would make everyone feel happier, eh?
Oh, I don't know. I guess you're right. I suppose it would be better if I'd never been born at all.
What'd you say?
I said I wish I'd never been born.
Oh, you mustn't say things like that. Oh, wait a minute. That's an idea. What do you think? Yeah, that'll do it. All right. You got your wish. You've never been born.
Just like magic, the hearing returns in George's left ear. The lip stops bleeding. It stops snowing outside. Seeing all this, George decides he needs a stiff drink. So he and Clarence walk back to his car, but the car's not there anymore. Spooky. Well, maybe I left the car at Martini's. Well, come on, Harvey. Clarence. Yeah. They go to Martini's, which is now turned into a seedy dive called Nick's. They sidle up to the bar. I love the actor who plays the bartender. His name is Sheldon Leonard, the same guy who played Harry the Horse in Guys and Dolls. Hey, look, mister, we serve hard drinks here and for men who want to get drunk fast. And we don't need any characters around here to give the joint atmosphere. Is that clear, or do I have to slip you a left for a convincer? And Clarence hears the cash register bell. Oh,
somebody's just made it.
Made what?
Every time you hear a bell ring, it means that some angel's just got his wings. At this point, Mr. Gower enters the bar. Nick sprays soda water in his face and kicks him out.
Hey, what's it? Nick, isn't that Mr. Gower, the druggist? You know, that's another reason why I shouldn't like you. That rumhead spent 20 years in jail for poisoning a kid. If you know him, you must be a jailboy yourself. That does it. Out you two pixies. Go through the door or out the window. So George and Clarence get kicked out as well. Nick rings the cash register. Hey, get me, I'm giving out wings. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, you see, George, you were not there to stop Mr. Gower from putting the poison in the capsule.
Oh, no, wait a minute. No, this is some sort of funny dream I'm having. So long, mister. I'm going home.
Home? What home?
Now, shut up. Now, cut it out. You're crazy. That's what I think. You're screwy. And you're driving me crazy, too. I'm seeing things here. I'm going home and I see my wife and family. Do you understand that? I'm going home alone. George storms off.
How am I doing, Joseph? Thanks.
No, I didn't have a drink. We cut to Main Street with a big electric sign that says Pottersville and nightclubs on every corner. George wanders around the neon in a daze. Hey, where did the building and loan move to? The building and what? The Bailey Building and Loan, it was up there. That went out of business years ago. George stumbles around for a bit more and piles into Ernie's cat. Ernie, take me home. I'm going off my nut. Where do you live? Oh, now, doggone it, Ernie. Don't you start pulling that stuff. You know where I live, 320 Sycamore. Now, hurry up. Okay, 320 Sycamore. Yeah. Now, hurry up. Zuzu's set. Come on. All right. As they drive up the street, Ernie signals to Bert the cop that he's got a lunatic in the back seat. They get to George's house, but it's still deserted, the deserted Granville place it was before Mary fixed it up. George races around the house in a panic. Mary, Tommy, Pete, Janie, Susan, where are you? Clarence suddenly appears leaning on a wall.
They're not here, George. You have no children.
George goes to leave, but it's blocked by a cop. All right, put up your hands. No fast moves. Come out here, both of you. Bert, Ernie, what's the matter with you two guys? You were here on my wedding night. Both of you stood out here on the porch and sung to us, don't you remember? Remember all the good times we had on Sesame Street? Bert tries to arrest him, but Clarence bites the cop and George makes a break for it. George goes to the house he grew up in and finds his own mother doesn't even recognize it. Well, I know everybody you know. Your brother-in-law, Uncle Billy. You know him? Well, sure I do. When'd you see him last? Today, at his house. That's a lie. He's been in the insane asylum ever since he lost his business. And if you ask me, that's where you belong. George runs away again and tries to find his friend Martini in Bailey Park, but it doesn't exist. All he finds is a graveyard in his brother's tomb zone.
Your brother, Harry Bailey, broke through the ice and was drowned at the age of 9.
That's a lie. Harry Bailey went to war. Haley's Comet. Harry Bailey went to war. He got a Congressional Medal of Honor. He saved the lives of every man on that transport.
Every man on that transport died. Harry wasn't there to save them because you weren't there to save Harry. You see, George, you really had a wonderful life. Don't you see what a mistake it would be to throw it away?
Clarence.
Yes, George?
Where's Mary?
Oh, well, I can't.
I don't know how you know these things, but tell me, where is she? If you know where she is, tell me where my wife is. I'm not supposed to tell. Please, Clarence, tell me where she is.
You're not going to like it, George.
Where is she?
She's an old maid.
She never married. She what?
She's an old maid. She never married. That's it. She's closing the library. Okay. So I wanders back. Mary, get away from me. So you're a librarian. Yes? Wait, okay. My brother's dead. My uncle's in a lunatic asylum. All the people on that transport died. The town has become a den of scum and villainy. And you're a librarian. But what really happens is he sees Mary and he chases her into a nightclub. She's screaming and Bert the cop shows up. Oh, it's you! George punches him in the nose and takes off back to the bridge shouting, Clarence! Clarence, help me, Clarence! Get me back! Get me back! I don't care what happens to me. Get me back and my wife and kids. Help me, Clarence! Please! Please! I want to live again! I want to live again! I want to live again. Please, God, let me live again. And it begins to snow. Bert's car pulls up. Hey, George! George, you all right? Hey, what's the matter? Oh, get out of here, Bert. I'll hit you again. Get out! What the Sam hell are you yelling for, George? George? Bert, do you know me? Know you? You kidding? I've been looking all over town trying to find you. I saw your car piled into the tree down there, and I thought maybe you... Hey, your mouth's bleeding. Are you sure you're all right? What did you... My mouth's bleeding! Bert, my mouth's bleeding, Bert! My mouth's bleeding! Jules' pedals. There they are! Well, how do you like that, Bert? Merry Christmas! And he hugs Bert and he runs at top speed towards town. He sees his old car crash into the tree. Yay! He sees the Pottersville sign is gone and replaced with the old one. And he jogs down Main Street yelling to people on the street. Yeah! Hello, Bedford Balls! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas, George! Merry Christmas, George! Merry Christmas, Movie House! Merry Christmas, Emporium! Merry Christmas, you wonderful old building and loan! Hey! Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter! Happy New Year to you! In jail. Go on home. They're waiting for you. Then George gets home and Mr. Carter and the bank examiner, some reporters and the sheriff are waiting for her. Mary! Mary! Oh, well, hello there, Mr. Bank Examiner. How are you? Mr. Bailey, there's a deficit. Oh, I know, $8,000. George, I've got a little piece of paper here. I'll bet it's a warrant for my arrest. Isn't it wonderful? I'm going to jail. Merry Christmas. Reporters, where's Mary? Mary! Oh, look at this wonderful old drafty house. Mary! Mary! Have you seen my wife? And all his kids are upstairs in pajamas. Merry Christmas, Daddy! Kids! And he runs upstairs and hugs them all. Pete, kids, Janie, Tommy, I could eat you all up. Susan comes running out of her bedroom. Daddy! Susan, my little ginger snap. How do you feel? Fine, and not a smidge of temperature. Not a smidge of... Hallelujah. And then Mary comes in through the front door. George! Darling! And George yells downstairs, Mary, let me touch you. Oh, you're real. You have no idea what just happened to me. All right, George. Now, come on, George. Come on downstairs, quick. They're on their way. All right. And George stumbles down the stairs laughing with kids hanging off of him. Mary clears off a table. Come on in here now. You stand right over there by the tree, right here. Don't move. I hear them coming now, George. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Come in, Uncle Billy. Everybody in here. Uncle Billy and the whole crowd of people burst in the house, and Uncle Billy dumps the basket full of money onto the table. George, I've never seen anything like it. Isn't it wonderful? Mary did it, George. Mary did it. She told a few people you were in trouble, and they scattered all over town collecting money. They didn't ask any questions. Just said, if George is in trouble, count me in. You never saw anything like it. And everybody's coming in, putting in money on the table. Here you are, George. Merry Christmas. In comes Martini with a mixing bowl full of cat. I busted the jukebox, too. In come Mr. Gowan, a large glass jar jam full of notes. I made rounds of all my charge accounts. Even Annie the maid comes in, digging money out of a long black stocking. I've been saving this money for a divorce if ever I get a husband. Mr. Partridge, the high school principal. There you are, George. I finally got the faculty all out of bed, and here's something for you to play with. And he gives his watch to Zuzu. I wouldn't have a roof over my head if it wasn't for you, George. Ernie stands up with a telegram. Now, just a minute, quiet. Everybody quiet. Now, get this. It's from London. Mr. Gower cables you need cash. Stop. My office instructed to advance you up to $25,000. Stop. Hee-haw, Merry Christmas, Sam Wainwright. And the crowd cheers. Mr. Martini, how about some wine? Everybody starts singing, Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Even Mr. Carter, the bank examiner, puts in a few bucks. And the sheriff smiles and tears up the arrest warrant. In the midst of all this, Harry in naval uniform bounds in with Bert the cop. George, old son of a gun, Harry! Mary and I got him here for the airport just as quick as we could. The fool flew in all the way in a blizzard. Harry, how about your banquet in New York? Oh, I left right in the middle of it as soon as I got Mary's telegram. Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George.
the richest man in town. And the crowd cheers again, this time breaking into Old Lang Syne. George happens to look down on the table, and sitting right on top of it is Clarence's old copy of Tom Sawyer. Inside is written, "Dear George, remember no man is a failure who has friends. Thanks for the wings. Love, Clarence." Mary says, "What's that?" "It's a Christmas present from a very dear friend of mine." And a little silver bell rings on the Christmas tree and starts to swing back and forth. Suzu points to it. "Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings." "That's right. That's right. Attaboy, Clarence." They sing, "We'll drink a cup of kindness yet for Old Lang Syne." And we see the Liberty Bell ringing out wings. The end, Big Black. Thank you.
That makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
It should.